Mic check. All right, it's working. There we go. Hello, everyone. Why can't I see myself? Hello, everyone. I wish I could figure out a way of shading this because, like, the difference is huge. The halo, anyways, whatever. The Blues are back in town. Yeah, getting back to the normal palette. Oh my God. Like, I'm really happy with how that painting came out, but miss having the the blue colors and everything. Like, seriously. Hey Cody, good to see you. Oh, let me show you how the painting came out, by the way. Give me a second. Oh, so we're there. Where'd it go? Because this one is 100% dry, like it should be. Yeah, so this is I think the final product of the uh, Zorn palette experiment. There's some things that have nothing to do with the palette that are a little messed up, but whatever. Um, Thank you. I'm really happy with how it came out. I just wish some of it's just the prep work. I wish there wasn't some of these like marks that went through it that are have nothing to do with the paint. Like it's just um the surface, but the unevenness of the surface. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Thank you. Glad you like it. Um Having said that, I don't think that the like it's fun to learn from the Zorn palette, but I don't think that the Zorn palette, you know, made it kind of turn out great. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if that makes sense, but it was fun to experiment with it. Very frustrating, but fun. Um, I don't know how much I'll use it again in the future, but it was a good experiment. Yeah, yeah. There's so you can kind of see um like there's this like line kind of thing going through here and here. That's just like um that's just the primer dried uneven uh basically. So, yeah. Yeah, not happy about that, but it's not a big deal. I think those imperfections makes him look hardcore and scary. Yeah. I think those imperfections often add a lot to it. So I'm okay with it. It's really funny because um hold on a second. Move that out of the way. Um it's really funny because I think that in art as artists when we make art, we okay, I can talk for myself. I have a vision or I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to accomplish something and I want it to look a certain way. And a lot of times the physical and human error, both, like the physical traits of things and the human error or human, just the fact that you're dealing with something real and it's not precise always, you end up with results that are not perfect and they're not exactly what you had planned. And um, I like to put a lot of that into my art on purpose, but sometimes it can be frustrating. Having said that, I think a lot of times, like the imperfections are the things that other people end up loving the most. And I think that goes the other way too. Like there are paintings of other artists and there are things that I love of it. And they're like, yeah, I don't really like that because I was trying to do something else. And it's just it's one of those things that is kind of funny about art, I think, sometimes. Yeah, I'll be sending it to him tomorrow or tonight, probably. Oh, online, you know. I'll be posting it and everything once I run it through Glaze. Oh, let me fix my something on here. So how have you been? Hope you've been doing well, Cody. Your skull paintings came out great. Did you hear anything back from the show that you participated in? For anyone who doesn't know, Cody is a really great painter, and he teaches painting uh, in Colorado. You mentioned that the portrait didn't turn out because of the Zorn palette, but I wonder if it kind of did because the Zorn palette pushed you out of your comfort zone. Oh, that very much could be the case. For sure, that could be the case, but it's not like if I kept using the Zorn palette, and did a bunch of studies with it or a bunch of portraits with it, that would no longer be a part of it, right? Because I'd then feel comfortable with it, kind of thing. You've not heard anything about them? You're doing a new one though? Oh, that's fantastic. Like, it's not the colors that made it work, but it was the Zorn palette that made you work extra hard. I get this. I get what you're saying. I feel like you can. I feel like I can push myself, um, you know, to work extra hard without it. But I get what you're saying. And I have done painting challenges, other ones. Like, I mean, you've seen my like very high key paintings or my single tone paintings. And all of those, are super challenging. Um, Like it takes like what you're, what is normally a part of art and just like kind of like uh you know forgoes a lot of it, so you're so it's very much a struggle. um so yeah, I understand what you're saying. Can we get a little tilt forward? What is going on here? And I learned a lot from those very high key paintings. So I think there's a bit of that, and there's definitely an issue of like the focus and the attention that it requires, for sure. Good enough. I will say this, I for me personally, and this is very much a personal thing, I I think I learned a lot more from doing those other challenges than I did from the Zorn palette. But once again, that is very much a personal thing. And it also could be a timing issue because had I done the Zorn palette prior to those studies, it might be different. But I don't regret doing it at all. I think I think it's great to do these little, to do these studies and challenges occasionally and push yourself out of your normal comfort zone and you know, working habits and so on. Plus, I happen to get a really cool portrait out of it, so I'm happy. Um, what was also interesting about it was it pushed me to what's it called, to expand my use of contrast and tones. I usually work very compressed, as I've mentioned repeatedly, um, and having those lack of colors made me push more into the high contrast areas. Now I used to paint much more high contrast than I currently do, so it's more a I think part of it's also the photo reference and all that stuff. So it's definitely more a choice thing and so on. But it was fun to do that because I haven't really gone high contrast in a while. And that's not even that high contrast. Like it could go even more. Yeah, not every Cody says, yeah, and not every lesson speaks to everyone equally. Those high key challenges probably spoke to something more relative to you and your practice, while the Zorn challenge might be more relative to other painters. Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So the thing, the things that I got out of the things that I got out of the uh, high key paintings and the single tone paintings, um, and the very compressed paintings was it. I got a lot of control for my tones and my values and my colors. Like a lot of nuance. I'm much better at getting all those nuances now than I was prior because you have to be. You can't do it otherwise. Um, I'm better at doing moody paintings because that was also a big part of it. Um, and also playing with cools and warms because when you're doing the single tone paintings, um, you have no the single value. You have no values. So it's all color and saturation and but even that, because the way colors work, you're very limited because as soon as you start adding saturation, it gets darker, and you can't have it get darker, or it gets lighter, and you can't have it get lighter. So then you end up playing a lot with temperature. And those are all things that like I said, I learned a lot from. And I think a lot of that applies to Zorn in a lot of ways. Just in a, more like traditional way. I think I would have gotten a lot of those same lessons from the Zorn palette had I used it prior to doing those other paintings because there's a lot of similarities to it. But I do think the Zorn palette is easier for a lot of people to work into versus my palette or high key or single value paintings are. So, like you said, certain things speak to certain painters than to others, and so on. But yeah, I missed this color, and I missed this one the most, and this one too, and actually I missed my whole palette. Honestly, I missed all of it. I could see that. You like to introduce Zorn to your students pretty early on before they get into broader selection of colors, specifically because it's limited. You describe mixing color like a conversation, and less options there is, the less solutions. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I can see the Zorn palette being easier for people who it's closer to a traditional palette. So if you're working with a traditional palette, it's a very easy step in that direction. And if you don't have experience painting at all, then most of the colors are very muted. So it's also a very easy step towards, especially when you're doing portraiture type of stuff, because people, you know, overall people have warm colors to them. Like a student asked how to make green with Zorn. There's only one way with the uh, and with the extended palette, there could be many ways. True, although that is one thing I like about my palette. There's not a lot of options. You know, it's like how do you make a color? 90% of the time it is mix the white or mix this color with this color and this color and some white, maybe some black. Like 90% of the colors are a mixture of all of them, or you just exclude one. um, to a degree. That's not entirely true, but I get what you're saying. But it's so this palette is just a little goes a long way. So I end up mixing back and forth so much because it just swings you back and forth, like just the slightest bit of phthalo, and you're like way past it. Well, yeah, yours is limited in the exact same way as Zorn with different options, but basic results, but basically the same. Yeah, exactly, it is. But it is also a little ridiculous. Usually, uh, one thing that I know artists, students especially do, and they struggle with is they don't put out enough paint, right? Like that's a very common like thing that teachers tell students is to put out a lot more paint than they do. And you'll notice I have these little piles, and it's like that's not the right way to do it. But the reason I have these little piles is because this is phthalo blue and this is quinacridone rose. They're so strong. Yeah, like I'll put out more if I need it, but a lot of times I don't need it. But you'll see I put out a ton of white because you know I use a lot of white. But yeah, these colors are ridiculous sometimes. When you get to a certain level, you can sort of tell how much paint you will need. Beginners have a hard time with knowing that. Yeah, that's true. And also, beginners will hesitate to put out more. They'll be like, "Well, I can just kind of use what I have and finish up, and I'll save the saving of the paint." I used to do that, the saving of the paint. Um, Now, as soon as I finish, like if I finish my yellow, I tend to finish my yellow the most. As soon as I finish my yellow, I'll grab the tube and just put out a bunch more because I'm not about, you know, that's not what I'm trying to do. There have been a few paintings where I was working on them, and I they were very heavily into the blue, and I was surprised how often I went through my phthalo because normally it's like it, that paint goes a little goes a long way normally. Um, so I just remember that as like there's been a few paintings where it's just like God damn, I'm going through this a lot faster than I normally do, which is fine. It was just surprising. I am a little sadistic, so don't tell them they don't have enough paint, and then when they run out, I tell them the more mixing practice never hurt anybody. Yeah, true. You're absolutely right, though. I feel like maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like some people don't teach in a way. Uh, I mean, I hate to be that like they don't teach like they used to, but um, I remember doing what's it called? Uh, I remember doing lessons where I was homework where I would have to do all these like this is when I was learning charcoal. I would I would have to do uh practice of like doing line work, and then I'd have to practice shading. So I'd have to like shade squares. Um, in the beginning, it was like a solid shade, and then it was like, okay, well now do a light one, now do a dark one, now do transitional shades, and do it so that you can't see any pencil stroke, pencil, charcoal stroke, individual strokes, and so on, stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like people don't do that stuff anymore, and I think that's I don't know. Like if you want to get better at some things, like you know, that's not like the art part of it, but that is definitely the proficiency part of it. So same thing with like mixing colors and stuff like that, like yeah, gotta get that practice in. You agree, there's a lot to learn, but I am a pretty firm believer that some really strong basic skills can take you a long way. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Plus, I feel like there's definitely a lot of like basic skills um, that you need if you want to, like, you know, um, like if you want to develop to a certain level, like you're going to you don't want to be limited by your skills, if if like artistic expression is like the, goal or the idea. Well, that's great, but if you can't convey that expression because you're not capable of it, well, then you're not going to go very far. And it's funny because the like someone referred to it once. They used the term hard skills. The of learning how to draw, learning how to paint, learning the basics. Like that's actually the surprisingly, in a way, the easy part, right? Like Cody says, right? Like I want to be a painter, but I don't want to learn drawing. That's a big one. Yeah, I don't get that. I don't. Yeah, I don't know that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you don't have to be the best. I hate the word drawer because of it's so weird to say, but you don't have to be the best at it to be a good painter, but like some basics and fundamentals in it is very, very helpful and beneficial. And you can tell, like, when, you can see it when people don't know what they're doing in that area. It's often very evident. You understand to an extent, like, they are excited to paint and they don't know how entwined drawing is with the process. Not saying it's okay, just you kind of get where they're coming from. They don't know what they don't know. Correct. I agree. Uh, you're, you know, you're right about that. No, you're fine. Cody says, I'll shut up and let you paint. No, you're absolutely fine. I enjoy the conversation. I don't mind at all. I got um I got a lot of my new supplies. I haven't touched them yet, but I got them. I'm excited about it. part of me doesn't want to touch them because then they won't be new anymore. So there's like an excitement that I have something waiting. And as soon as I, break them open, I'll no longer have that thing waiting anymore. I'll just have it kind of. Nice. Yes, new art supplies are double-edged sword like that. Yeah, they are. I also I'm also faced with a bit of a conundrum as far as what to do with my brushes. So, I bought a bunch of rosemary brushes to try out, right? Um, which is great. Like I'm looking forward to it. But here's the conundrum. Do I try them all out at the same time so that I can better compare them? Or do I just, you know, take one type? Because I bought a couple sizes in each type. Do I take just one type, try that out for a while, and then switch over when they are either um, and either clean them or they're ruined, either whichever comes first, and then try out a new one. Because if I do that, they'll last longer. The first one will, I think they'll have a shorter lifespan, but I'll get a better comparison. If you ask me, I get a bunch and usually use one at a time. Yeah, that's my inclination is to like just take one and start using it and see how I like it and use it for a while until I kill it or I want to start a new one, try a new one. Supposedly, if you take good care of your brushes, they should last for a long time. And my brushes do last a long time for me, but it's more that they last a long time for me. It's more that I use them for a long time rather than they last a long time. um, yeah, because like I paint with brushes that I probably shouldn't be, that they're uh, they're messed up enough that like um, I should probably retire them or only use them for special, special things. But I don't. I just keep using them and make my life hard. You usually use the size style you're familiar with and fall in love. Then you do another painting later with a different one. Do you then fall in love with that other one? Like here, let me show you this one. All right. This is a brush I've been using for quite a while now. Um, I don't know if you can see how splayed it is. It's kind of hard to show. Um, but yeah, this is kind of like a detailed brush, and it's really hard to do detailed when you have a bunch of, you know, bristles going everywhere. But I keep stubbornly trying to make it work. By the time you're done with the first painting, you know if you're in love with that whole order of brushes or not. Interesting. There's a brush I need to try again. I have this one brush that I loved, but I haven't used it in a very long time. I should um, go back to it and give it a shot. To be fair, you pretty much only use long flats. I mean, the same. They're kind of the best, in my opinion. They're my go-to. I pretty much only use them. I've tried other stuff. I almost never see the point to them. Having said that, the one I do want to try is a little different. It's a it's an acrylic brush. It's the Liquitex paddle brush, and yeah, I enjoyed painting with that. You figure that a number two long flat that you love is similar to number 12, just smaller. Uh-huh. Yes and no. Yes and no. You're right, but it's not a one-to-one, you know, it's not one-to-one because the stiffness that you need for a smaller brush sometimes can be overwhelming on larger brushes. Or, vice versa, the softness that you need can make a to make a small brush work and so on. Hey Saman, welcome. How you doing? Good to see you. So the Liquitex paddle brush, I need to give it a shot again. It's been a while since I used it. I really enjoyed it. The thing is though, you have to modify it a little. You can't just, I mean, you can use it straight out of the, straight as you buy it, but it's better modified. Good. I hope you're doing all right. I know it's been a little rough lately, so I hope you're well. So I can't take credit from this for this. I learned this from Pink Epoxy on Twitch. She doesn't stream anymore. She used to. But you take the Liquitex brush and you have to clamp it down. You have to clamp the bristles, the ferrule down, and use it like that. Let me see if I can find it. I can show you. Oh, here it is. I have it right here. So this is the paddle brush, the freestyle paddle brush. Now what you need to do, and I guess I didn't do it yet, you need to clamp this part down so that the bristles go flatter, because otherwise it's too thirsty. It just sucks up everything and you end up needing to use a lot of extra paint for no good reason. But I love the handle on this. I love being able to paint like this, like holding the, brush like this. I love it. Cody says, I've never seen one of those, and that's saying something pretty cool. Yeah, I really, like I said, I really like it. They come in 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch sizes, so they're not for fine detail work, that's for sure. But they're not expensive either. Like the 1 inch was like, I think it was like $7 or maybe eight. Not bad at all. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about how you hold that type of brush that I found very appealing. I know you're supposed to. They teach you to like step away from your painting and hold it like this, so that you're just far away and all that. And there's good reason for that. I get why people teach that and why people promote that. Um, but I really enjoy holding that brush that way. Isn't that to avoid tunnel vision and avoid uh, insignificant details? Salman, yes, it is. That is one of the reasons. That is not the only reason, but that is one of the main reasons. The other reason that ties into it is when you hold the brush like this, you tend to tighten up. So if you want to loosen up, hold it like this, and you'll be looser. Uh, so that's another reason. But yes, you are absolutely correct. For the most part, that's why. Oh, I see. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And questions are welcome, and there's not, what's it called? Different people will tell you different things, of course. And the funny thing is, right now, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I'm holding it far away, but I'm not holding it out. I'm actually holding it more like this, parallel to the painting. Um, and the reason is because paintbrushes apply paint differently depending on the angle that they're at. Um, so when you paint wet into wet, sometimes when you want the paint to deposit, you have to come at it at an angle. Um, Otherwise, it won't. It'll just scrape the paint off. Most of my paint is now dry, but I guess my brain isn't thinking about that way. You've been watching Bleach. You've been watching Bleach. So anytime you see that haircut, you're reminded of Basby. LOL. That's funny. I don't remember that character, but I understand the idea, and that's pretty funny. Yeah, I need to get back to One Piece. I got pretty far, but then I stopped and took a break. I think it's time to get back to it. I haven't watched Bleach in forever. There was a manga character. The Bleach anime is back. You finished the manga. Baz is the new character in the anime. Okay. It's not enough difference. if anyone watches this after the fact, um, one uh, recommendation or tip I can give is when you're painting and you're painting transitional areas, don't put one color next to each other and then just blend them together and think that that's a good way of approaching it. Um, it's a lot better to uh, paint both areas and then mix the actual transitional area color and put that in between, because it's not always a one-to-one just mix of the two. Often there's other um, more complex aspects to it. Got to head out early this evening, work in the morning. Excellent conversation though. Cody, absolutely. It was a joy talking with you. Thank you for stopping by. Um, I look forward to next time and seeing your new paintings when you get to them or you post them. Salon, have you seen the video critiquing Shadiversity's new video? Shad, lol. Yeah, well, he released a new video. Did you see the critique video, the one that's like just slamming him for, being a dumbass? Yes, it was funny and sad. It was funny and sad. I agree. I mean, look, the guy's been coming off as quite the dick. So it's enjoyable to dunk on him. Having said that, it's actually, when you stop to think about it, very sad. He's very pathetic. Um, and he doesn't have to be. It's by choice. He could make other choices. Um, yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think it's ultimately very sad. Um, the part where he's talking to Jazza. Oh yeah, that to me was the biggest like telltale uh you know aspect to it all. Like that just demonstrated and explained everything, in my opinion. Like that conversation he had with his brother, and how he wants to be perceived and how he's not, was like, that was it. You know, it's all stemming from that. And like you said, that's actually very sad. If it was any other artist under like different circumstances, he would be getting a ton of support and encouragement, um, instead of all this hate that he's getting. But the way he goes about it is so wrong. It's really hard to. 100%. Yeah. 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 And it's really sad too, because like the art community in general is such a welcoming place. Like people will be very supportive and helpful and like encouraging, like because there isn't a, you know even like the best artists in the world, like they weren't always the best artists in the world, you know and they know what it's like to struggle and to go through all of that. So there's encouragement there, there's camaraderie and support. Honestly, the only artists I've ever seen who like shit on other people, excuse my language, are like are usually really bad at it, at like their craft, and it's all out of like insecurity. The way he kept on saying artistic eye and subtle human input, was an odd way of trying to make it look like he was doing something. Yeah, that stuff was pretty funny. I am curious. Like part of me really is curious why he is so obsessed with this when he says that he doesn't even enjoy drawing. I'm like, well, if you don't enjoy it, why are you so obsessed with being good at it? I don't that part I'm like baffled by. My assumption has to be that when he says that he doesn't enjoy drawing, it's just cope. Like he's just trying to deal with the fact that he's not as good as he wants to be. Because I can't fathom it being anything else. I don't know, maybe because his younger brother is really good at it. Yeah, that's my thinking. My thinking is it's a coping mechanism. And like credit where credit's due, Jazza is really a good artist. But because Jazza um jumps around so much from so many different things, he his skill set is very broad, but it's not very deep in a lot of areas. And that's just the nature of like how it is when you jump around like that. So it's not like there's no room you know, for Shad if he wanted to go in a different direction, even if he wasn't quote unquote as good. Of course, art's such a difficult thing when you say someone is as good. It's very dependent on what you're judging them based off of. But he could easily find his own kind of lane that's not something that Jazza specializes in. Um, but he's too insecure, I think. That's my assumption. And also, he only wants to paint or draw like, you know, comic book waifus. That seems to be his main focus. So I don't I don't think he's necessarily going to be better than Jazza at that because Jazza does comic book type artwork and he's good at it. So it is ironic. Yeah. Okay, this is throwing me off. This needs to be a lot lighter. There we go. You've seen him in a live stream with Tech Bros and a comic book artist ended up on the stream. I think it was the creator of Bane, the Batman villain, and he was talking to them about how AI is not. Wait for the rest. Real art and can't be compared to what real comic book artists do. Oh yeah, I don't even care. Like the whole like, is it real art? Is it like what is art is such a messed up question in general because it's such a like context specific thing that I don't even care. It's more like uh is it theft? Yes, absolutely. Uh or exploitation? Yes, absolutely. And did you make something when you make something using AI? Unless you did something else with it, no, no, you did not. So, so yeah. And the reason I say that is because, like, what is art is such a broad thing, and people will use it as an opportunity to, poison the well. Because there's an art piece that's a toilet, right? Like, that's an actual art piece. And in the context of, um, you know, in the correct context, it actually makes sense why that's an art piece. There's an art piece of like two clocks that are slightly out of sync, and then every once in a while they sync up and meet perfectly, and then they're out of sync again. That's an art piece. You know, you may not like it, like you may not, but they're not saying, "Oh, I'm the best," you know, painter because I combined these clocks, but it is an art piece. So what is art is such a broad thing. I don't even feel like it needs to be addressed when you have all the other aspects of the AI that are an issue. The AI guy tried to make a example of what the AI can do using 3D models and image to image, and the comic book artist told him, you're doing it wrong. uh, pose it this way and change the camera to fisheye. Yeah, well, that was one of the things I really liked about that video of the guy who was dunking on Shad. He's not only a really good artist, he's very technically proficient. You can tell he's very technically proficient. I think he's honestly probably more technically proficient than Shad is at using the program. Um, so he knows what he's talking about. It's very obvious he knows exactly what he's talking about. It took a comic book veteran to make them do an interesting image. LOL. Yeah, true. He was on him. Yeah, absolutely. It's lucky Liefeld wasn't on that panel. He would have been like asking asking it to draw feet for him. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I've actually met Liefeld a few times. He seems like a nice guy now. I think he had to go through some stuff to because he's done some really in his past. He's done some really dumb shit, like pissing, like really dumb shit. But I feel like you know, he's definitely matured, and he seems like I don't know, seems like a nice guy, regardless of what you think of his art. But it's hard not to make fun of him, given the like, you know, some of the art he's put out there in the past. You've always liked how everyone knows who Liefeld is because of everything wrong he did and ignore what good he made. Yeah, I mean, his the the thing is, the stuff he put out was just like it was so egregiously bad. And the thing was, it wasn't just that it was egregiously bad; it was that it was bad, and he got famous for it. So people like hate on someone who's like getting fame and money and just like doing these things that just suck. And that's definitely cherry picking, right? the life-filled Captain America is a meme. It is. It really is. And I mean, there's other stuff like he used to do drawings of people, and it's like he had no idea at the time how many teeth people have. Like not a clue. And don't get me wrong, I don't know how many teeth exactly people have, but I have an idea of how many show when you smile. You know, he did not. He was like, "What? 30? Sure, that sounds right. I don't know. People are like sharks, right? Same thing." The ever-changing hair on his characters. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and you know that, like I said, it's nitpicking. For sure. Like he's definitely got positives to his artwork. Um, but he honestly, I think Liefeld was a victim of his own success because he got successful very young, and I think in some ways, um, that messed him up for um, and that also made created a lot of haters. Uh, so and he made a bunch of stupid mistakes. Like, I mean, he's been sued multiple times by companies because of the stuff that he's done, because he made really bad decisions. So, stuff like that. Like, I don't know that he'd do that today. You know what I mean? And that's what those are the things I'm talking about when I say like stupid things, like literally like stuff that made, that got him into trouble in court. And like he burned bridges with all these different companies for a long, long time because of the stuff he did. Like, famously, I don't know if you know about this, but like there was he was working on I think it was a Captain America book, and it got canceled. Now I don't remember the details of why it got canceled. I don't know if it was his fault, not his fault. I don't know. But he owned the artwork to it because that's how it goes in comics. So he took the pages that he did for that and drew over it a different costume and released it as a different character, and finished the story and stuff and released it that way. But he didn't even. My understanding is he didn't even bother to erase the drawings of the Captain America logo and stuff underneath it. Um, at least that's my understanding of it. I'm if I remember correctly, and he got sued for that. And it's like, I don't think you know, I I I don't know if a more adult individual would have made that mistake. I could be wrong, but true. My favorite Liefeld joke is show his fight scenes to anyone, and they will say it looks like A break dance, like breakdancing. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. But like I said, I met him. He seems really nice, and his you can see the experience in his work at this point. Like he's very proficient, and his work is very like you can see a very strong style guy, going through all of it, and very solid at this point. There's definitely a confidence in his work at this point. Like he's been doing it for so long. I think that there's just like I said, like a proficiency that comes with working for so long at something. Um, whether or not you like his style is irrelevant, kind of thing. But yeah, back in the day, there used to be this website that collected like the worst examples of Liefeld, um, and they made like a top 50 or 30 or something like that. Um, Man, he had some haters back in the day for sure. I do. There was another website kind of this similar. Uh, I think it's still out there, but I don't think they update it. Which was like it was like Superman's a dick or something like that, and it's like it collects all these different times in history where like and present where Superman's just like the worst. It was pretty funny. So this arm, I'm trying to lighten it up. Um, like all of it basically. I'm trying to lighten it up because it there's so much light bleed coming from the light source that it was too dark and it was it was affecting the whole painting because ultimately we see everything relative, you know. There are ways of not seeing relative, like you isolate things is a very good way of evaluating your colors and so on, but yeah, we see everything pretty relative. Because yeah, now that that's all much lighter, it's still not perfect, but you know, I'll get to it. But now that that's all lighter, her face looks so much darker in comparison. So that will be addressed. Lighting here is very interesting because there's a very strong light here, obviously, but there's a very strong light right here on her arm. Um, and that is actually because of the strong light here bouncing off of her face. And that's why there's such a strong light here. Hey, Don Lee. I did finish my Zorn palette painting. Would you like to see it? Or do you want to wait till I post online? How are you doing, man? It's good to see you. By the way, Don Lee is an art streamer over on Twitch. Um, Don Leo, same as his name in the chat. Um, he does digital artwork, uh, portraits, pop culture stuff, pets, all kinds. Go check him out. Oh, exciting news, by the way. Did you see? I hit 101 followers on YouTube. I know it's not a big number, like you know, you know, like ultimately it's not a big number, but hey, you gotta celebrate the small things. I'll take it. It's exciting. You'll leave it up to me as far as the painting? I'll happily show the painting. I need a break every once in a while, anyways. Thank you all. I appreciate the support. Thank you. My hands also need a minute from the being in those gloves. Hey, Fluff Pie, welcome. Good to see you. How are you doing? So here is my Zorn palette painting that I just finished. Well, thank you, Salon and Fluff Pie. I appreciate it. Fluff Pie, I'm getting better. It's I don't want to really talk about it much right now, but it's been tough the last weekends, so but it's all right. I'm feeling better. It looks good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Turned out really nice in my opinion. Thanks, Donley. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think it came out. I'm happy with it. It was fun. It was fun to challenge, get out of my comfort zone with the Zorn palette. Think you'll do some more Zorn, uh, do Zorn some more in the future? No, I don't think so. I mean, occasionally, maybe, but not regularly. Um, I don't think I got it's not that I didn't get anything out of it because that would be a lie, but what I got out of it was more pushing myself, was the mere act of pushing myself and being out of my comfort zone rather than the learning a lot from the paint itself. Um, I think I would have learned a lot from the Zorn palette had I painted with it prior to um, a lot of paintings and challenges that I've done in the last year or two. Like all the like high key and single value paintings and low key, like low key paintings and all of that stuff. If I had done the Zorn prior to that, I would have learned a lot more from it, I think. Oh, it looks like my stream might be stuttering a little. We'll see. I think it picked up again, so we'll see how it comes out. But yeah, I don't think I'll be doing Zorn often. I will say I think uh, artists who are newer to oil paints or uh, you know color or whatever. I think they would get a lot more out of it. I think they'll have an easier time with the Zorn palette than they would with my palette. So at least in a like more beginner stage, I think. The reason I think that is the Zorn palette has a much more um, natural, um, you know, uh, colors that are uh, easier to manage uh, than like what my palette consists of. So those, I think those are real benefits for someone who is not that experienced. Someone says, guys, have a great night. I have to go. Hey, man, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great night. Um, yeah, I appreciate it. Hopefully, hopefully, you can stop by on Sunday. No pressure, of course. I know people have lives. I'm not trying to guilt anyone into coming, but I will be streaming on Sunday. So yeah. If Fluffy says, if I'm understanding correctly, the Zorn palette is the palette you used for the painting you showed earlier. Fluffy, yes. I was doing a Zorn palette challenge for the painting I showed earlier. Not this one. This one is definitely not Zorn palette. And it was the first time I'd ever done a Zorn palette painting. You know, people talk about it all the time. People recommend doing it for students, and I'd never done it. The reason I'd never done it is because I'd never heard of it until I was further along. Um, so I was like, I didn't see the point. Yeah. Um, so I did a painting of Andrew Kadima, which is he's a painter. He was on the Drawn Together YouTube podcast on Dylan Sarah's channel. Um, and so I couldn't participate live, so I did it on my own time. And since he does a lot of challenges on his Instagram feed, he does a lot of like a painting with only two colors, and they're like weird colors that don't go together. Um, so I was like, well, if I'm going to do a challenge, the Zorn palette is actually more of a like quote unquote challenge for me compared to like some of the ones that he's done, because those like these two colors, it's like it's not that far off from stuff I've done in the past. Um, Pinky Donley says Pinky learned on the Zorn uh, palette, if I remember right. She might have. It's a very, very popular um, palette for to give to students. Um, so, and I understand why. It's got good limitations, but they're also fairly what's it called? Kind of understandable. Like you can kind of um, you know, they're they're not understandable. They're intuitive, I guess would be the word I'm looking for. Fluffo says, yeah, use a lot of colors in your paintings, which I love, by the way. They look so good. Thank you very much, Fluffo. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I also use a very limited palette. Um, in fact, the Zorn palette is, um, let's see, yellow, red, black, and okay. The Zorn palette is slightly more limited than mine in the sense that it has one less color than mine does. But yeah, mine is still pretty limited. But it it's limited in how many, but um, it has a very wide range intentionally. I purposely wanted to make a palette that was uh, limited palette with a very wide range. But yeah, I like the Zorn palette. I like the challenge. It was very frustrating, but I enjoyed it. Towards the end, I was getting into it a little more. The beginning was more frustrating, of course. Man, not having blue was just that was the part that I hated the most. Only unfortunately I can't stick around tonight. Have a good stream, Mia. Take care all. Hey, no worries, Donley. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. It is a, it's a night stream. I get it. It's late and yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I'm also after a full day of work, so I'm not going to go for a forever after this. Like I am getting tired and I am losing steam. I'm also surprisingly hungrier than I thought I was going to be. Have a good night, Dunley, if I didn't say that already. I think I did, but anyways, have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. Nope, that is way too light. One thing that happens when you mix with brushes sometimes, not saying that that's what happened here, but one thing that does happen is every once in a while, um, like like a clump of color will like embed itself in the brush a little. Like you'll just get a clump and you don't see it. So you go to paint and then suddenly you get like a streak of like one solid color that's like way too whatever bright or dark or it's pretty funny when that happens. The paint wants to make its own design. It happens, yeah. I will say this, sometimes it's a good idea to let the paint make its own design. I think that's one of the magical things about like real, painting with real medium. It's one of the things I love about it is that like the imperfections, things things happen, and I like it's always challenging to keep those things in, but I think it's a good idea to do that. It's like a fingerprint, but for paint. That's funny. Some things just can't be recreated. Yeah, true. There is a degree of that. I'm fairly confident that this is too light, but that's okay. And the reason I'm okay putting down something that I know is wrong is because I need to lighten up this whole area anyways. So having something slightly too light, that's fine. I'll darken it, but it'll give me something to work against. How do you choose your reference picture? Fluffy, that's a great question. That is not an easy question to answer, though. Um, yeah. So it's such a good question, but it's also such a hard question. Um, there's no like one answer. The best way I could like my best answer would be you you do it a bunch of times and you evaluate why a painting was successful and why it wasn't. And you learn what are the aspects of a reference photo that help it be successful versus ones that make it not successful. Um, obviously that will change depending on the style you're going for, you know. So there's definitely that aspect of things. And um, what makes a good photo doesn't always make great reference for painting. For instance, a lot of people look really good with like head-on lighting. That is rarely good for portraits because for painting, it's too flat. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a complicated question. Some of the general things I can say is um, you want lighting to be um, you want lighting that shows off the form. So you don't want flat lighting. Often, not always, but often profiles are tend to be flat. Also, straight on tends to be flat. That's why you see a lot of three-quarter paintings because they tend to have more depth to it. And this is of course mostly focused on like portraiture, you know. Um, you want good lighting, but good lighting is such a um, you know, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a case by case type of thing because you want what good lighting is the appropriate type of lighting for what you're doing, right? Which is such a like, you know, I don't know, cop out way of saying it in a way because like, yeah, obviously. But there's some truth to it because, you know, the lighting that some people will like versus what I would like might be different. But generally, you want lighting that shows the form because that's one of the big challenges in painting is showing the form. So you want something to help you with that versus um, hinder you on that aspect of things. So this one, for instance, might not be the best reference in a lot of ways because it is backlit. So you're actually losing a ton of information. Like in her face, a lot of the information there is really condensed down and you're losing a ton of it. Uh, but it's not entirely gone. It's still there. It's just much more subtle. Um, Having a hard time light darkening that. Um, and there's a lot of really great things happening in the face that where the light is bouncing off that gives you a lot of form information. Plus, it's a striking pose and everything, in my opinion, so that also helps. But yeah, it's a great question and a complicated one because there's, you know, there's so much that goes into it. Like if I was going to try and paint a painting like Sargent, for instance, right? My reference that I'm going to look for is very different than um, a paint than if I were going to try and do a painting like I mean it doesn't really matter, just another artist that has a very different style. Um, you know, I mean obviously a Frank Frazetta, you know, it's going to be vastly different. Although that might not be the best one-to-one comparison because they're so different in genres, but I think the idea gets across. So, um, so yeah, I think if people want to get better at choosing reference, it's definitely something that takes time and practice. How do I choose what colors to use for your lighting and shadows? I mean, theoretically, you pick based off of the reference. Um, you know, I don't want to. Um, it's a little complicated because I obviously change some of the colors, but I don't change them completely. It's more like when you so okay, this doesn't work with photos as much, but when you're painting something in real life, if you look at someone or you look at something that's there in front of you, um, and you're just looking at the general thing, you see general colors. But then if you focus on like the shadows, your eyes uh, can, depending on the circumstances, they can adjust, allowing you to see more in the shadows. And so you see more color and different colors because of that in the shadows. And it's not a, not a, at that time, you also don't see the lights as well, um, because that's how your eyes work, right? They can adjust to different conditions. So what happens is like you're looking at a model and they're just sitting there and you're like, okay, the shadow's kind of cool, tends to be cool, although when it's close to skin versus skin next to skin, it tends to be warm because um, the bounced light. Um, so, but then when you like look, you start seeing very, very subtle shades of different things in the light too. Like if you look at someone's skin, if you look at someone who has fair skin, for instance, same thing with someone who has very dark skin, you'll see just different tones. Um, but if you look at them, you're like, okay, they're kind of you know, a yellow, reddish, peach kind of color. But then when you take a second to look closer and let your eyes adjust, you'll start to see, grays. You'll start to see blues and greens. Um, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is your eyes adjusting. Part of it is uh, what's it called? Subsurface scattering and the actual like anatomy underneath that's showing through. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. But bottom line is when you start looking at it, you start seeing a lot of different things. Now, it's very, very, very subtle. It is not a like, it's not like they look like, rainbows all of a sudden. It is a subtle effect. But my point is, you see that subtle effect, and then I take that, what I see, and I just kind of push it just a little bit so that it's just a little less subtle. Now, it gets a little harder when working from photos because camera phones just they don't even not even regular phone even regular cameras don't do a great job of capturing all that subtlety. So there's a bit more invention, but part of it's just that you're relying on your experience from doing it previously, you know. So But yeah, I don't really like makeup, like wholesale makeup colors. Unless I am doing a painting that is um, you know, like monochrome or something of that nature where you're no longer even trying to get the real colors. You're just going for the values and different color scheme. That's different, but that's more just a choice or decision, like whatever you like. There's no like, you know, nothing more to it. You can do it in any color. You can do a monochrome in any color you want. It won't matter. I hope that was helpful. Yeah. But yeah, when you're not saying you fluffy, just in general, when you're new to painting, I would say um the best thing is to just try and match the colors best you can. That's where you start from. Doctor, I focused too hard and now I'm seeing rainbows. Yeah. Well, so if you go look up Jennifer Balkin, um, she does a great job of this, and you look at some of her older work, you'll see like it is very, very colorful, and in a way that like there's no way it was actually those colors, and it wasn't. But the thing is, it doesn't matter too. If you I'm sure you've heard this before, but if you get the values right, the colors are almost irrelevant. But it's not entirely true. There, it kind of depends on the situation, but it's close to being true. And of course, that is a simple way of looking at it. It's a very good, solid way of looking at everything. Um, and simple might not be the way. I would say it's a like a beginner, or not even beginner, a very foundational, fundamental way of looking at it. But there are once you know the rules, you can start messing with them and breaking them, like they always say. But it's a great starting point. You don't do painting, so you never truly understood how painters pick their colors, but I explained it really well. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. Can't like the dynamic range of our eyes versus like cameras and so on. It's all interesting. We technically have a wider, ability in our eyes to see more a wider range than cameras do. So that's why photo reference is, not always the best thing to work from. But, there's a lot of things that you can't do without, well, you can do it without photo reference, but it'd be a lot harder. All right, it's been over 2 hours and I can feel the drop. I'm going to be calling it a night, I think. I appreciate everyone who stopped by, left by. Thank you very much. It was great. Those were great questions, and um, yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks to everyone who is followed. Passing the 100 is really cool. So yeah, thanks, Lo-Fi. I'm doing all right. This is just allergies. I'm doing okay. So, all right, have a good one, everyone.